Welcome to another episode of the podcast. Today, I am joined by Amy Allard. Amy, how are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for joining us. So tell the audience out there a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Gosh, all right. Well, I am Amy Allard, thank you. And I am an interior designer. I own my own design studio, and we serve really Boston and beyond. We've gone all the way down to North Carolina, California, Florida, so we kind of dabble everywhere.
I love that. So let's speak about design. How did you get into the design world? I know we've talked about your story before.
Yeah.
But speak a little bit about kind of where you were born, where you were raised, and how it all led to you getting to where you are today.
Okay. The medium version.
Whatever version you prefer.
All right.
The stage is yours.
Born and raised Freeport, Maine. Definitely a small town country girl, which is kind of ironic because now I'm like reverting back to that. But like a city country girl now. But born and raised in Maine, and then my family was either like high school dropouts or super creative, and so I kind of like latched on to the creative family members. My grandmother built wagons, the red flyer wagons, and
Nice.
like for an old woman to build them and then put them on her lawn and sell them, like blew my mind. But she did that, and then my grandfather did care training. My aunt did stained glass, and then my grandfather, that couldn't hang like a picture for the life of him, would watch that show, Tim the Toolman, and I was like, for some reason, gravitated towards that show with him. Him and I both couldn't do a single thing creative at that point because I was so young, and then I think from there, he asked me one day casually, like, what do you want to do when you get older? And I was like, I think I want to design houses, and that kind of like guided me through where like how I wanted to approach it. And then my other grandfather was like, you know, to be successful in life, you have to build your toolbox. And I'm like, all these analogies were kind of coming back towards like the home building thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, what do you mean by that? And I was like, and then I kind of felt like disingenuous when I was like working for a company where I knew I wanted to learn about lighting. And I'm like, but I don't want to be here forever. But I want to like work here to like master lighting, and I want to work there to master furniture, and I want to work for a restoration company to master restoring houses. And so I kind of felt like, you know, like the corporate ladder, you know, climbing to get to that goal. Like I kind of appreciated that mindset, but it also felt a little weird. So that was kind of the two men in my life that were like influential, I'd say, were both my grandparents that told me that's like what I needed to do. And then I implemented that in the way that I did.
How old were you when that conversation happened, when your grandfather asked you what you wanted to do?
As I was saying that, I was just trying to remember. I'm like, I know. So I was in Auburn. That was probably when I want to say 13.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
Early
then
teens.
from there, I went to a design school at Mount Ida College and did my grad school there, and then was going to go back for psychology and was like, I can't do more schooling. Like, let's just hop into it. And it was in 2010 when I graduated, so the market wasn't really that great. And I went to a furniture store and I basically said like, hey, if I can increase your sales by 10% in 3 months by just changing your vignettes and things around, like, will you hire me as a full-time designer for all your locations? And he said, yes. And, you know, ignorant little girl out of college, like believed it. And that was full of like total false promises, but it taught me so much. And it gave me the opportunity to kind of like juggle with different vendors, with like lighting vendors, wallpaper, like that type of stuff. So it kind of got me in the mix of being able to deal with different trades. And then from there, I went and did the restoration of houses, and that was like life-changing for me. So
Yep.
It was like being the only girl in that industry and being like the inside project manager, where I basically just like pushed around doing orders, but it was so much fun. I'll never actually forget the day. This is like a really ridiculous story to share, but it came to mind, was I had to write daily emails to people, and I didn't know that caulking was spelled C-H-A. I will never live that down. And I was like, I am literally a woman in a man's world. Why would they do So I was like, I started to realize like, this is an industry that is kind of comical, and I love it. I literally love like the worst parts, like you go on the job sites and it's like sweaty. There's no AC. There's like maybe a fan going. The guys are like relentlessly working. It's just, you have such appreciation for every side of it. And so being a designer and kind of like being able to try to make their lives a little easier is just, it's like so fulfilling to me.
Excellent. Well, thank you for sharing that, Amy. Speak a little bit about what it took for you to go from working for someone else and some of the experiences you had to transition into becoming a female entrepreneur in a male-dominated industry on the construction side? Obviously, design is more diverse, but just speak about that transition and what gave you the courage to make that leap.
That's actually, I never in a million years thought that I wasn't like someone who grew up in a bunch of entrepreneurship where like that was a goal. And I don't want to say it fell into my lap because I busted my ass to get to this point, but I actually had been working for a lot of really, really successful bosses and people that I had looked up to and admired. And I actually felt like I was going to be with them for, like, I'd almost create like a name for myself. Like, oh, you need cabinets, Amy Allard, like go call her, she'll take care of you. So I kind of wanted to create like my own company underneath their company and create my own brand, I guess to say. So I guess an example of someone that's in the industry knows Rosemary Porter. She's like the Pilgrim Pole queen. Like when you think of Pilgrim Pole, you think of Rosemary. When you think of Rosemary, you think of Pilgrim Pole. So that's kind of unique that she's able to kind of create her own company without the BS of owning it, but just being able to like go home, sleep, not stress about running the business. That was intriguing to me. Mm-hmm. And then when I worked for a boss that was so bad, but they were like killing it. And I'm like, if they can do this, I can do this. And then I had a builder who was like, Amy, you're too good to be working for this company. And I'm like, that's like, like anyone can say that, but like, put your money where your mouth is kind of thing. Like, would you hire me if I was on my own? And like, once he said that, and once I kind of started to see, behind the smoky mirrors, I was like, maybe I should do this. And my boyfriend at the time was like, I don't know and understand why you don't do that to begin with. And I was like, I don't know if I'm ready for that. I literally didn't know a thing about business. I knew I was really good at design. And then I started listening to some podcasts, and it was like, you can be really good at something and then you go into business and you don't know business and it's done. Like it ruins it all for you. You can't even get excited about it again because you had such a bitter taste in your mouth. And me being an emotional being, I was like, I don't want to risk that. I still want this to be fun. But then I hired a business coach and I fell in love with the business side of it more than design, which is wild to say because I still love design so much. But the business side of it is like, well, like if I love it, I need to create a life that can that'll cater to. Mm-hmm. So I think I just kind of fell in love with the idea that like I can do something, be really, really good at it, and it can support me.
I really appreciate the fact, excuse me, my throat today. I really appreciate the fact, Amy, that you separated the design as a skill set from the business side because it is two separate skills.
Yeah.
And it took me years to realize that as well. I read a book by a gentleman by the name of Dan Kennedy.
Okay.
He's written a bunch of sales books, but one of his most famous quotes is that the marketing is the business, right? And so once you realize that, you can definitely really appreciate the importance of becoming a master marketer, especially if you have a strong skill set for whatever it is you're offering to people.
Yeah.
And that really will put your business on steroids. Have you seen that in your own career and on your own journey?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think too, like even in the toughest conversations with clients, like we had a client that they signed on for design fees. And then once the builder that they'd hired, he kind of came in and he mentioned like, oh, all the stuff that your designer's doing, we can do it too. And he said it in a way that wasn't like, oh, let's cut Amy out. Yeah. It was like, oh, like we're a team, but the clients heard it in the tone of like, we can cut Amy out and you're going to handle it all. And so they called me and they said like, at this point we're going to terminate our contract. I'm like, whoa. And the business Amy like kicked right on. I'm like, okay, all right. So, let's digest this because I've committed to my employees and my timeline and salary and, pay, with you guys having $40,000 left in your contract. In our contract, it says if you terminate early, I'm still able to recoup 70% of it because just like when you go to rent a house and you want to terminate your lease early, you're liable for that unless you find a sublease. I need to either find a project that can take over the leftover months that we had separated for you, or I go to business, and that's stupid. Like I'm not like, and you guys don't want to. I know you're not doing this to put me out of business, but if I didn't have that in my contract and I didn't have that business sense, that would have screwed me over. $40,000 is like a salary for some. Correct. You know what I mean? So I think, and there's a lot of designers who are like, oh, whatever, like we'll get another job, and I'm like, I'm so tired of having that mindset. Like I need control over my business because basically I'm asking these girls to put themselves out there and work for me. But, I may not be able to pay you. Like, that's not really fair for, like, what I'm trying to build. And so I think that falling in love with the business is, like, was the best thing ever.
Yeah, no, to that point, I remember I read two of Elon Musk's autobiographies, right? Well,
Oh.
biographies, not auto, but they were written by two different authors. But one of the themes in both of his books was that the business must survive at all costs, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, that really speaks to your point of speaking to your client in terms of, like, listen, if you don't continue to work with us and honor the contract, I'm going out of business. And it's not just me, it's everybody I support. It's the whole
Right.
ecosystem on my side. So, like, you know, I think a lot of people, even business folks, don't realize that.
No.
Like, people look at the business as like an ATM machine or something to get rich, but the reality is it is something you're building for everyone who's involved to benefit, including the customers, you know? So
Absolutely.
that's a great point that you brought up there.
And that's something like when we go over the contracts, I say that in the beginning, like the reason, and they're like, oh, why don't we, if we were to walk away and like, what if we want to buy another house? It's like, well, we can renegotiate terms and we can say, hey, the last remainder that we've done, we can either use the stuff that we've done for like to put up for your market, for the house that you're going to put on the market. Like this is like where we landed. And then for your other house, we can roll over and create a new contract. But I can't just commit to you. And then you'd be like, oh, sorry, just kidding. Like if I was a casual designer, and sure, in my early years, I did that. And that is 100% why my contract is what it is. But yeah, and it took me a little bit to figure out the language, because I was like, where else in the business world do you have to pay for the services, whether you use them or not? And I'm like, I feel like that's like in a lot of places, but I needed to make it in like layman's terms from my own sanity when I'm like talking about it. And the first thing that came to mind was the rental. Like when you rent a property, you commit to 12-month lease, you have the security and whatever. And I'm like, That's kind of what I want. And so I called up Gil, actually.
Yep.
I'm like, make this happen.
Yeah.
Protect me, please. So, and the only people who give me pushback is developers.
Of course, they want the flexibility. Like, hey,
like, can you
don't lock
put
me in.
that down to 60%? I'm like, oh, fine.
Yep.
But it's honestly, it's just there for a conversation, and it's just to kind of like legitimate, like make it so it's like, hey, I'm the real deal. Like, I'm going to show up for you. I blocked off this time for you, and I expect the same. And it's like, I think that I think it just makes us seem more, we're good at what we do.
Exactly. Professional. It's a physical representation of the professionalism.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. And your commitment to your clients.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't even remember what the question was, but.
Yeah, no. No, it's all, you answered it. You nailed it.
Good,
you nailed it.
Good.
Excellent. So speak about mentorship, coaching. It sounds like, before you made the leap into full-time entrepreneurship, you went and got a coach. And I think a lot of people I've talked to, especially young entrepreneurs, they feel like they have to do everything on their own strength. And that's, in my opinion, where people get stuck.
Yeah.
So what made you decide to get a coach and realize like that was what you needed to really build the foundation to get going?
I think to the first part you said about like, you think you need to do it on your own and then you get stuck is what happened. And you're listening to podcasts and you're like, oh, that sounds good. Okay, I'm going to implement that. It's like, okay, and then there's another one. Oh, I want to implement that, or I want to try that. And like, you're like, holy, like you just can't, there's not, like when you think of like walking down a path, it's like, okay, calming. And it's clearly walking down the path of business is not calming, but at least you're on the road to somewhere. But when you're like trying to take it all in on your own and you have no idea what the road is, you're literally in the middle of like, the one thing that I can think of is like in a field, and you're like, there's dead flowers there, a couple nice flowers in the back. And I'm like, okay, I want to get to there, but how, like, is that even worth it? Like, so I think I got really overwhelmed by trying to piece the business idea together, because everyone thinks they know how to run a business. And everyone's like, oh, well, interior design, like you can't just hire a business coach. It has to be design related. And then I was like, I feel like they're overcomplicating it, because business is so black and white. And that's where I interviewed a bunch of designer coaches, and they were like, $70,000 a year. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, I can't afford that, let alone like, how am I supposed to have a business and then pay, like, I'm basically supporting your business. And unless you can guarantee you're giving me $70,000, like I couldn't. So then I actually interviewed just straight up business coaches, and something they said, which is the perfect sales like thing to say if you're a coach, is like, look, we are a business coach. It doesn't matter what business you're doing. And the beauty of hiring us is you're a business now, you're going to get addicted to it, and you're going to want to have other businesses. So having this path that is, transferable to any wild idea that you guys have or you need, like you could decide that you want a warehouse and you want to have a shipping and receiving business because you're struggling finding one as a designer. You could start a shipping and receiving business using the 13 path that he has, like 13 steps. I think you met my coach on one of the calls. Very, very
yes,
super cheesy, but it's like it's what I needed.
But he gives you a step-by-step blueprint, makes it super simple, super easy to follow.
And I'm like, okay. And it's like, for me, I'm like one of those people who, you give me something and I'll run with it. Like, but I just need that like confidence to know that I'll put 300% into it, but I need to make sure that it's coming from the right person. Where I was listening to a podcast and I'm like, okay, it's like a design business podcast. I'm like, that sounds good, but I feel like I'm like missing part of the information. And so it's like, you needed that kind of like interaction with someone that, hey, okay, that sounds good, but I don't really understand how you got from A to B. And like, I think different people work where I like to work based on knowing the value of it. And other people like to work they don't need to know the value. They just need to know what the end goal is. And I also realize that like, when it comes to business, my business doesn't care about my feelings. So I need to like remove my feelings like, oh, I don't feel like doing this today. I was like, well, guess what? Your business doesn't really care about that. So it's like, if you aren't feeling good today and you can't show up, well, then guess what? Something in your business is going to sacrifice from that. So I think that that's something that I got that mentality from my coach. And they ask you like, what do you want to be coached at? Like from 1 to 10, like 10 being a drill sergeant. I'm like, I need a drill sergeant. Because like I'm already all over the place. I'm human and we all have emotions, but I need you to be very like, if you don't do this, then you're not working on your business. So that's kind of like why I hired a coach, and I didn't right away because I didn't really like have the income to do it. And then I think I actually didn't have the income either when I hired him, but I was like, you know what, this will pay off. It will pay off. Like I have to do it. And he's super inexpensive and they help with the website, but it's so much bigger than that now because now my husband and I have better conversations on like, well, what's our next thing? Like, what's the next thing? What do we want to do? And then the mentorship too. I now am able to do like an internship for high school interns and college interns. And it's just kind of cool to be able to like now give back, to your point too, when you're getting into like the hard money, you almost want to like give back to the people that, because you see the benefit of having a mentor and you see the benefit of showing them like, this is the right way to do it, or a way to do it, how it worked for me. But I do think like knowing how to go about business is, if it's complicated, it doesn't need to be. It's very black and white.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you sharing that. And something you touched on there was you talked about you wanted to know why you were doing each of the activities.
Yeah.
And I feel like when you start to understand why it, you can really start to connect the dots, and it makes it so much easier to engage in the activities because you're not thinking about, well, this is a waste of time, because you know exactly how one thing compounds and leads to the next and leads to the next and ultimately leads to your goal.
I think that, and to piggyback on that, is like, that was part of the reason why I felt so burnt out, was because I'd be implementing these like incredible ideas, but it's like, that idea is incredible if you have the foundation for it.
That's right.
And then it's like, okay, I didn't have the foundation for it. It sounded really good, but now I'm like overwhelmed by all the additional work that I have to do. And I'm like, I think I was just like looking for like a quick fix to get the business started, but without realizing that I just needed someone to say like, it's not quick. Like slow down, take it easy. Like, and you need to hit certain milestones to get to a certain point and appreciate the process. And I think, I think actually it was a blessing and a curse having worked for a company that was just like a family company that made enough just to make their family comfortable. And I think that's a great, for them, like that was their vision for the business. We don't need to make a ton of money. We just need to make enough money to keep because their whole family worked for the company. We just need to make enough money so everyone gets a paycheck. And I'm like, you know what? Like, it's simple. Yeah. And that's their way. That's like a simple business. And it's like, I think I kind of remind myself that now is like, how do I want to cater my business to help my lifestyle? And now my newest thing is like, how can I make money when I'm sleeping?
Yeah. No, trust me. We all make that leap.
Yeah.
I'm there too.
Yeah.
I love it. Excellent. So let's talk about fear of failure, because I think all entrepreneurs face that.
Yeah.
And I've heard many different people talk on how they've overcome that. So how did you overcome the fear of failure going through all these transitions and really, trying to figure out, because you seem extremely resilient. I can just hear it and see it.
Yeah.
In your story and everything you've done.
I don't know what it is. Like, the first, I'd say 4 or 5 months, I literally cried every single night. Like, I was like, what did I do? My husband's like, da-da-da, going right, just literally like sits his head on the pillow and is like out. I'm like, are you kidding me? I want to strangle you. But it's like, he gets a paycheck each week. And I'm like, what am I going to do? And like, I didn't realize like the risk, like you kind of like feel very, like that's like the vulnerability, like, fear. Like, so I definitely got over that. But I think it's like every time you embrace like feeling vulnerable or fearful, whatever you want to call it, I think there's so much to be learned from it. That I actually like, I love failing, but I also think that's like a toxic trait of mine where it's like, I enjoy when I mess up, or if I, actually pay my girls like I got them a designer purse when they save us like over $8,000 if they catch a mistake, because like I love encouraging them to find mistakes, and because in our industry it's so expensive when you make a mistake, and so it's like I need them to be like on their A game to the point where even with me, like when I have them do analysis on our budgets to see if like we are overspending on something or to cut budgets, and which is a whole nother conversation on like co-ownership now with my girl, and how we kind of are embracing failure or fear of it. But I do think that I guess I'm only fear of like, I always want to be learning. And if I'm not learning, I think it's almost to the point where it's like, it can be crippling in a way. But if I'm not learning something each day, I get really nervous because I'm like, did I challenge myself enough? Am I too comfortable? Because I think in my industry, like I constantly need to be re-evolving, and I need to be aware of like what's changing, whether it's building codes or whether it's materials, products, things that my builders have hated that we recommended, or like it could be Schluter, it could be like a drain cover, like anything, like, or a light fixture because it was like a pain to install. So I think my fear of like, I guess that kind of is like a long-winded way of like, I fear disappointing my clients on either a business level, like a labor level, like, so I think that is what kind of motivates me to be the best business owner that I can be, because I know how it's like an umbrella effect. Like if I don't deliver for the clients, then we're not getting paid. I can't deliver for my employees. So it's like, it really is. I know people are like, oh, you can't like make your clients happy. And it's like, that can't be your main focus, but it really is. Our main focus is because like, you're the one who's putting food on our table. So it's like keeping our clients happy and making sure that I'm on my A game all the time is important. But I do think that falls back on like time management with some of our developers. Like they call, I pick up. Like I know that if I don't, it's going to cost them money. And so we explain that to all of our clients. Like if a client calls, unfortunately we don't pick up, but if it's their builder that calls or it's a developer, would be our hand-to-hand client. But we explain to them like, hey, look, we're in an industry that if I don't pick up, it's going to end up costing you the client money. So I have to pick up anytime a developer or a builder calls to keep momentum going. And I know that's probably not a sustainable business whatever approach, but that's the only thing that I think that I'm fearful of, is not being available and messing up or disappointing them.
Got it. And you know what? When you can do it, you know, with the size of the company, you keep doing it, right? And you know, if you have to forced to adapt, then you adapt and find a way to still deliver the service when you grow.
Right.
But
yeah.
No, you touched on a lot of great points there. One thing that really resonated with me was you talked about your motivation being not to disappoint your clients and to really deliver, because ultimately it will allow the company to continue to grow and stay in business. But your motivation runs deeper than the client.
Oh, so absolutely.
It's clear to me.
Yeah.
It's clear. And so with that said, where do you think your motivation, basically the origin of it is? What's the origin of your motivation? Because I can feel it. I feel the energy. You're a go-getter. You're out here getting after it every day. So I'm just very curious.
Oh, I'd say there's two things. I definitely am. Growing up, we grew up very early on. We were very, like, we had money. My dad was bringing in a lot of money. We had, like, every toy under the sun. We had three-wheelers back when they were, like, legal. I don't even know if they're legal anymore. But, we had, like, it was amazing. And then we lost it all when my dad got in jail. And so it was, like, I went to jail for, I forget how many years, which we thought he was on, like, a painting trip, which was kind of funny. But when we lost it all, it was, like, holy, like, our lives like changed. And so I think that fear of like being poor or like losing it all is so deep that like no matter how much therapy I do, it's like not going away.
Yep.
And my husband sometimes jokes about it. He's like, you like spend as if you have no money. And I'm like, because you just don't know. Like you just, and like for me as a kid, like, I mean, obviously there's tons of signs like that I just as a kid would have never picked up on because I'm a child. I don't know what a bank account is. I don't know like any of that stuff. And as an adult, it's like I know so much more. So you think I would not let that follow me. So I think that definitely weighs on it. And then I also realized too the impact of your home. Like I changed my room around anytime I was in a bad mood. I would like move it around.
Change the environment.
Yeah, and you have control over it.
Yep.
which is another thing. I was like, I love control. Like, so I do, I understand how your home can really be, and I think everyone else is kind of catching up to that from COVID, because everyone was like trapped in their house and had to really like look at it. Like, how do I enjoy this? You know what I mean?
Great point.
And I'm like, girl, I've already been there. Like, I've been dealing with, I love my house. Like, and people come over and they're like, you don't have like tchotchkes and all these. I'm like, I don't, none of that makes me happy. I don't need like a little statue here of something that literally adds zero value to my life, just takes my money and puts it, like, it just, things like that. I see importance in, things that have value to me, but I also don't like to have like showy things and things like that. I just want something to, like, I want a comfy couch. I want a nice rug. I want a bathroom. Like, I want these things that are, make me feel luxurious and make me feel good, but I don't need to overspend or overcomplicate my house. And I started to realize that clients don't want to give themselves permission to spend money ever. Like, they're like, we have some of the most like wealthy people I've ever come across, like billionaires as clients, and getting them to design a house and spend money on them is like, they're almost like shy about it.
Wow.
It's
That's interesting.
wild. Yeah.
That's very interesting.
And I'm like, you guys, like, we had a client in Cambridge, they traveled the world and they had all these like tchotchkes, and he owned like a record label, and now he collects like old antique cars, and his wife is like a famous cookbook chef. And when we were doing the house, like, we just don't want our guests to feel uncomfortable when they come over. I'm like, you guys aren't stuffy people at all. Like, your house doesn't need to be stuffy. And they're like, but I don't want to spend like $18,000 on a sofa. I'm like, well, if it's comfortable, then no one's going to know that it's $18,000. Like, yeah. And they're like, well, we don't want to tell them to like not wear their shoes on. I'm like, well, so then if you're spending $18,000, you shouldn't have to take your shoes off. It shouldn't ruin your, like, you shouldn't have it be like that, you know, like the Italian family putting like the plastic on it and stuff. Like, so I think I really kind of gravitated towards like approachable design, but design that I guess it's like comfortable, but like who you are. So you'll notice like we don't do any of the projects that are alike, because we spend so much time trying to get like the client's personality into their house, where the farmhouse style like makes me cringe. I'm like, I can appreciate it. Yep. But it's like, why do you want something that everyone else has? And why, when it comes to, I don't know, I think that your home should be a reflection of you, and when it's not, you're lost. You're just like, if you have a build a great house, and even when we work with developers, it's like, you're putting a backsplash on, like, let's just add a little detail on the side of it. It's literally the same exact price, but it just has a little bit more like personality to it. And the buyer is going to appreciate that. Even if you did like 6 different houses that are the same, and we do different finishes, but we do like little different detail, one buyer will be like, oh, I love that. And every time they go to that bathroom or that kitchen, they're going to resonate that because it speaks to their personality. And so I think that's where we thrive a lot, is having such a unique clientele. But I think also we thrive too because a lot of our clients came from nothing, like I did, and that's kind of like a mutual thing that we, whether we realize it or not in the beginning, we do over time as we get to know each other. And I think a lot of people that come from nothing and build something, that we struggle with the same thing of being able to spend money on ourselves.
Wow, no, that's powerful, really powerful, because the motivation started in childhood and spanned into the business, and even to today, it's really about going above and beyond for your customers. Yeah, and no, that's awesome. Something that came to mind when you spoke. I'm not a psychologist or anything, Amy, but I've read a lot of books on psychology. My number one favorite book is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. Okay. And if you haven't read it, I highly recommend it to everybody.
I'm gonna,
check it out. Really, really powerful. Because it really deals with an age-old question of what is the meaning of life, which is very, very powerful. And he's a Holocaust survivor. He was a psychologist who went into the concentration camps and lived through that and documented it, which is it's different than any other Holocaust book you ever read. But one of the things I've learned through that is trauma has the ability to transform. And I feel like too many people let it, transform them in a way where they have a dysfunctional response versus a functional response. And it sounds like you allowed that young childhood trauma to really propel you to find your greatest self and to dig deep and to really find a way to create a life that you desire to have. Would you agree with that?
Oh, yeah. I'm very big. Absolutely. Not all trauma is like towards the good, but they say you could either get better or bitter. And I think that's something that, trauma, you absolutely, if you have like a self-reflective mirror and you're able to like reflect on yourself, then there's so much good that can come from it. My my mom always says like, oh, your generation just like loves to talk about trauma and blame everything on me. And I'm like, oh my God, Mom, like it's not that serious. And she's like, it's true though. Like she's like, I didn't realize like how much, there wasn't child books out, and there wasn't like Instagram videos that would be like, oh, don't do this for your child, do this. And it's like, but I'm like, Mom, at the same time, it's so overwhelming to like me being a new mom. I'm just gonna do the best that I can do. And I was like, and I have to say, Mom, like, I know you did the best that you could do. You didn't deliberately try to be, the way that you were. And I think that's, you're gonna always have that opportunity. And sometimes people use that as like, oh, I'm the way I am because of my mom. It's like, that's just a cop out. Like,
I love it.
You know what I mean? So like, no,
Yep.
I'm not the way that I am because of you. I'm proud of the way I am because of what happened. So yeah. But
No,
it's so funny.
I
She's
love
like,
it
we didn't know
'cause-
the word trauma unless we're talking about like going to the hospital. I'm like, that's kind of true. We like made our own version of what trauma, like mental trauma. But
yeah, it's
anyway.
interesting though. You share that because even me coming up as a kid, I went through a lot of trauma with my family, rough childhood, the whole nine. And at a point in my I was probably like 18. I was mad at my parents, like, oh man, why they give me such a horrible life and all these things. And just kind of through reflection, through reading the Bible and really just kind of reading books about psychology and trying to figure out life, I came to the conclusion that, listen, they did the best they could. If they could have done better, they would have done better, right? Like, I can't be mad at them for that, and because they're good people, but they just did the best they could with what they had.
It's so true.
And that now puts the responsibility on me as an individual to really make sure that I make my life what I want it to be. Because at that point, it's not your parents anymore.
Right.
It's us, and I feel like to your mom's point, too many young people out there never take full accountability for their lives and for
that's really easy to do that.
blame, right? It's easy to blame, and it's hard to be responsible. But there's another book I read called Extreme Ownership, by Jocko Willink, former Navy SEAL. Great great read, and he really goes deep on that. And I think our world needs more of that today, Amy, because if everyone did that, I think we'd be a lot better off collectively.
Yeah, yep. I think we talk about that a lot just now, having almost a 1-year-old daughter. Like, how are we gonna get her to really like respect your elders, but also like have confidence and be self-aware. And I keep going back to like jujitsu or martial arts, and I'm like, I think that's something when she's 3 or 5, which my brother-in-law is always like, oh, you don't know if that's good or bad for them. I'm like,
oh, it's good for them.
Yeah, so
I'm gonna tell you that here in the studio. You heard it here first.
Yep.
I got 4 kids. It's great for them.
I know. That's why, so I'm like, that's one thing I think as a young girl, and
absolutely. I've got 3 daughters.
So So that's I think hopefully I would say that's something that a lot of other people continue. And also, you mentioned the Bible too, and becoming a mom, I actually, you're co-creating with God. Like, I started to kind of get back into my roots of like being a Catholic and understanding what the Bible was. And I just actually recently had an aha moment where I didn't even realize that like all of the literature, like the Testament, Old Testament, like I didn't realize that those are like all stories that were told from like different, like it basically is like a bunch of stories that can relate to anyone at any point of their lives.
Correct.
And it's supposed to be like chilling when you read them, so you don't feel like alone. And I'm like, how am I 30 about to be 37 years old and just knowing this? Like, but I think when you what's that saying, I forget who said it, but it's like when the student is ready, the teacher, or when the teacher is ready, the student will listen. I'm butchering it, but there's like some saying about like how like you get the information and it resonates with you. And I think now is like, okay, well, now's the time for me to like really tap back into being Catholic. And because I have a daughter, and I want to make sure that I'm like laying the foundation out, so she knows that she's not alone. And if I can't answer questions, then she can go to the Bible. And so I do think that's I think that's a really important thing that my generation, are we about the same age? I'd say
43.
Yeah, so like our generation is not really. I think because like we were in that generation where they started to remove religion from schools, and it was such a bummer because I feel like that like we all missed an opportunity to either gravitate towards it or decide we didn't. And instead, the decision was made for us, like, you can't. Right.
Yeah. So, no, I totally agree. Yeah. I mean, as I've gotten older, and I've realized, I mean, the Bible is a book that really is designed to give us instructions and principles on how to live a better life, right? Like, it's not there to control you in a way where it's like, oh, it's going to hurt you. It's actually there to bless you and help you make decisions and deal with the struggles that we all face, because a lot of these characters in the Bible are flawed individuals.
100%, just like us,
just like us, right?
So it's so relatable. And I kind of like I think when you're young, you don't really understand that. And then, well, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of young kids that do.
Yeah.
But I think I just never got the opportunity to be exposed to it in that way.
Correct.
I just love church for the singing, and that's all I went was just to sing and hang out with my grandparents. So
Yeah, that's a great reason to go to.
Yeah.
Great reason to go to. No, that the show The Chosen, my kids actually like it a lot.
Yes.
They love it. And it really depicts biblical characters as real people.
Yeah.
Which I really appreciate. Not these holier than thou figures and all these,
like
folks.
approachable.
They're approachable, regular guys, that disciples and men and women who were just trying to make it.
Have you seen the movie Inside Out?
I have. I've
So
seen
that
the
is
cartoon,
another one where it's like, to your point of like making things like approachable, was like the mindset and like how your brain works of like compartmentalizing like trauma and different like those The Chosen and the Inside Out. I know they just came out with another one, but those are two movies that I found to be like super influential, or show and movie, for that like mindset shift. If you're not like into books, that was one that I was like, oh wow, because I do a lot of the what's it called, IFS therapy.
Gotcha.
Internal family systems.
I don't know. I'm not familiar with that.
No, well, that's basically what the compartmentalizing, like the happy, like there's like the depressed, like little purple blob
Correct.
or whatever.
The character that represents
then, like,
depression
the
and happy and all. Yeah,
and that's like
ones.
kind of understanding. You're like, I'm Amy, but I have this like the good cop and or the devil and the angel.
Correct.
It's like everyone has like their internal parts where it's like, I have the manager part where it's like I have to always be in control, and sometimes I have to say to that manager part of me like, hey, we got this, there's no risk, but like they're all good, they're there to protect you from like something bad happening.
Yep.
But I think that the IFS blended with religion is like the recipe for success, like mentally.
I gotta look into that.
Yeah,
I appreciate you sharing that.
It's pretty powerful therapy. I think that therapy is, as I was Nico and I would have talked about it as well. But I think that style is helpful where it's like you're not just sharing stories, you're like trying to understand where it's derived from, and then you're able to kind of rewrite it.
Makes sense.
So,
yeah, I've heard that philosophy before.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you can kind of rewrite things and play them out as based on how you wanted it to work out,
right?
Versus how it did work out, and it kind of helps.
Yeah, it's pretty well. We can go down a whole rabbit hole on that, but yeah, it's pretty powerful stuff.
Yeah, to go back a little bit, I have 4 kids, and similar to you, I really wanted to make sure they all had strong values, religious values, and really just knew what life was about and had confidence in themselves. Because in today's world, there's just a lot of pressure to conform, as there always was, but even in a world where I feel like there's almost no values for a lot of the kids.
Yeah.
And so my kids kind of feel like weirdos and different things like that. But I always told them, I said, the most important thing is that you're good with you. Yeah. It doesn't matter what other people think. It doesn't matter that this person does something different or lives differently. That's good for them. But be okay with who you are, right?
Yeah.
And just really accept it as your reality and know that you're not weird because you're different. It's just the way you are.
Yeah.
And it's obviously easier said than done because it's peer pressure and everything. But at least we've given them a foundation. We've given them values. And, my kids, they're very mature. My 2 oldest have a 16-year-old and a 15-year-old that, they're just very observant. They kind of share what they see happening. And like these kids just kind of don't know how to deal with things, just because they don't have a framework to kind of go back to on how to live and something that they believe in that's greater than themselves. So I give you credit for that. And then on the kind of martial arts side, so all of my kids did boxing, girls, boys, since they were like 3-4 years old. So they've all boxed. One of my daughters did taekwondo. She was a red belt, and she actually stopped because she had a couple sparring matches where she like literally like beat up these like 30 and 40-year-old women.
She's like, Dad,
and she was like, I don't want to hurt people, and like, I mean, it was like, I was at one of them and you heard the kids cheering like, oh, like, cheering her on. And she was like, that's not what I want to do. But she's, long and short of it is she's very confident. She can defend herself.
Yeah.
And I truly believe like, cause she actually got bullied when she was younger.
Really?
Yeah. So that really helped her cope with it and deal with it. She didn't have to use it on the kid. It was a boy and we got ahead of it, but
she's a smart girl. She's like, I don't need to.
Right. But I saw that as they got more involved in sports and athletics and martial arts, that it really boosted their confidence. Yeah. So I highly encourage you to stay on that. 100%.
Course. My husband's like on board with it. It's just,
the pressure from everyone else.
Everyone has an opinion on how to raise kids, and I think it's really, you do have to listen to your gut. And I think I actually had a question on that is how do you, because like obviously growing up where there's no entrepreneurs in my family, and now like getting the high of being like an entrepreneur, like I always worry that I'm going to be like pushing that on Maya to like, you know, create your own empire, build your own. And like, I don't think that's a bad thing, but I'm not someone that's like chill when it comes to like knowing, you know, like I'm just not really chill about like, I know how good it is. So like, just do it. Like, just shut up and do it kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know how, that's something that I'm going to, and whether you know the answer or not, but like, that's definitely something that I'm going to struggle with is like not pushing her to not take over my business or anything like that, but like create her own empire.
Yeah, that's a great point. So ZK and I were talking, you know, he has a young daughter as well.
Oh, it's so exciting.
Yeah, he and I talked about it. So similar to you, he was talking about martial arts and
no way.
Yeah, getting his daughter into, you know, different activities and things of that nature.
Martial arts.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
You know, and so with that though, he also talked about how raising a child, and he asked me, you know, my thoughts and how I did it, and as far as career paths, pushing them versus nurturing them. And what I would say I've learned in the 16 years I've been a dad is the environment will shape, you know, their decisions, right?
That's
and so like
true.
we are very entrepreneurial. So like my kids don't have a desire to work a normal job. They all want to be business owners, just naturally. We didn't force it. And the other thing I'd say is I shared this with ZK as well. When I was younger, I read it was like a short story that a famous photographer wrote about how he became a photographer. And basically his story was that he had a hereditary disorder. He thought he was terminally ill, you know, when he was like in his 30s or late 20s. He ended up in the hospital. He had to have an emergency surgery. He thought his life was over, right? Wow. And prior to that point, he hadn't even started his photography career. He always wanted to do it, always desired to do it. And I'd say he attempted it as a hobbyist, and it just never worked out. But when he thought he was dying, it gave him the courage and commitment to really go out and do it or commit to doing it.
Wow.
And so after he got out of the hospital, he committed and he became one of the greatest photographers ever. And, you know, what he shares in the story is talent is a myth. It really comes down to what you're passionate about and what you love. And so when it comes down to raising kids and the way I've approached raising my children, it's figuring out what they really enjoy and supporting that like wholeheartedly, like so that they can take it to the highest level possible.
That's so true. And I think that's something that is easy. It comes natural as a parent. And I think you kind of like forget how that's what your main goal is just support your kid and like show them the options. And then when they grab onto something, like you grab on too, kind of thing.
Correct. Exactly.
Yeah.
And allow them the freedom and space to kind of figure it out and do what they want to do.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, if you raise them well and you raise them in an environment where there's entrepreneurship, they're naturally going to gravitate to it. You don't have to force it, because I found that when you force it, they rebel.
Makes sense. Yeah.
That's where I'm very hands off. And my wife and I go back and forth on this. You know, she's sometimes a little bit more like, no, they need to do this. And
good balance.
I said, listen, give them space. They're good kids. They're going to figure it out. And they always do.
Yeah.
They always do. There's a story about this actually in the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Great book.
Yeah, he talks about it.
Like, I forgot. Oh, wait.
Yeah, Stephen Covey. You probably didn't have kids at the time.
I didn't. I know. But now
it didn't resonate. When you read it this time, it'll hit different, because he talks literally, he has stories in there about parents who kind of push their kids to go to certain colleges and careers, and the kids rebelled, and he would coach the parents to like ease up, and then the kid would make a better decision, right? That led to a better desired outcome.
Yeah,
so,
okay.
Yeah,
I definitely need to reread that then, because to your point, I was reading it from like me being the kid,
right?
Not having a kid,
not being the parent, right?
Yeah, wow.
Definitely. So yeah, go backtrack, but yeah, that's my 2 cents on that, Amy. Hopefully that was helpful.
No, it is. It definitely is. I think it's to the point where it's like kind of goes back to the business principles. If it's not easy, then it's like it doesn't need to be complicated. It should be very black and white.
Exactly.
So yeah.
Cool. One other thing I want to talk about. I know we talked about this before we started shooting here on the camera. You talked about having your first child and the transformation that occurred with you, and your husband noticed it, and you know, the benefits actually of that. So I definitely would love you to speak on that if you don't mind.
People think that I'm crazy when I say this, but I think like because everyone's like, oh my God, you're pregnant? Are you worried about your business? And I'm like, at first I definitely was like, oh wow, what am I going to do? And I'm like, what do you mean? What am I going to do? I have 8 months to get whatever I need done. And all my girlfriends that are business owners and are like nervous about having kids. I'm like, it is the best business decision you will ever make. Have a baby. Like, you can't tell me that you will have any other life event. You won't, even your marriage won't motivate you to like get something done in 8 months or however months you have to plan it. Like, I think, having a baby was the best decision ever from like a business standpoint, but also like, being a woman, and it was exciting to grow a family. But I was able to really like, you had said something when we were talking about it, was like just trim the fat kind of thing, where it was like, well, ironically, I gained 50 pounds, but trim the fat, and lost it all. Plus
there
some.
you go. Right.
I did. It was like, it put everything on like a magnifying glass, where I was like, okay, where are the weaknesses of my business? And then I was like, oh my gosh, if I want to take 3 months off, how can I take 3 months off? Like, what would fall through the cracks? I needed to set up a business where I didn't need to be there. And I'm like, that is crazy. I would have never thought, like, no one ever plans to not be a part of your business for maybe more than like a couple weeks. And I'm like, geez, like maybe that's the ultimate business move, is to be able to get your business to run without you for 3 months. Like, maybe next time I'll just go on a 3-month vacation. I won't be pregnant, and like I can actually enjoy it. And like, so that was like my goal. Is I was like, gosh, okay, so when else would I ever sit down, make a list of all the areas that our weaknesses are, and also all the areas that I do that no one else in the company knows how to do it, what to do. And it really helped me realize like how much time I wasted on shit that I did not need to be doing.
Right.
And it allowed me to actually delegate stuff that I should have delegated years before. So I think that, I'm like, if I could have a baby every year, I would, because it's like, every year it's like, okay, there's new things that I've naturally just let back into my calendar, and new things that I need to shed.
Keeps back in.
Yeah, because like I want my girls to grow, and if I'm in their way, then it's like, okay, so if I'm removing myself, that I'm not in their way anymore, going back to the control thing, is like I do love to have a lot of control, but I also love seeing my girls grow. And so it's like that tango between like letting go, but also at the right time. And then like, so I was saying I wish that men could get pregnant, because it is wild how much you get done. And my husband is like, how are you like, granted, I did have a really good pregnancy. Like I wasn't sick at all. I was tired for sure, but I would literally take like a quick 20-minute cat nap and be right back at it. And it was the best thing ever.
I love that.
Yeah.
No, for all the young women out there who are like on the fence,
have a baby.
You heard it here first. ClosersKlub Studio. Have a baby. It will enhance your life in every way. Your business will take off to new heights.
And then when you have the baby, the word no is the most satisfying thing ever, because I'm like, no, I don't need to take a call at 7:00 at night.
Yeah.
I don't need to be texting a client like about, I mean, granted, it is fun. Like I still do it, and like when I have a moment to, because I do love what I do, but I also love to be with my daughter. So it's creating like, my poor husband, he's like, wow, it takes having a daughter to like shut off. And I'm like, no, yes. I mean, you're not wrong, but I do. I think I realize like, because it's like, they're so dependent on you that you have to be on your A game. And if you're not, like, she could like smash her head open. I know that's dramatic, but like at this age, it's like everything is so unpredictable.
Right. Yeah.
But I do. I think it was like, I'm like so mad that I waited so long, but I am so happy about it. So.
No, I'm happy for you. We feel the energy.
I know.
We love it. Good stuff. Good stuff. So this was great, Amy. I really enjoyed our conversation. As I wrap up, I always ask my guests a surprise question. It's not much of a surprise. You already know what's coming, but is there anything you want to share with the audience that many people may not know about you, a hobby, a talent, or anything you want to share at all?
A hobby or a talent? I was going back and forth about it, and then I totally forgot to think of something to share, but I could share, okay. I mean, a lot of people know this about me that know me, but my wardrobe consists of 2 colors, literally all black and shades of black, because there's not like a true black shirt. It's like black blue, black gray, all white, and then like shades of white where it's like cream, beige. And I like keeping everything, like all my t-shirts are together, but they're like grouped by color. And I love having a uniform because my brain doesn't shut off. So it's so easy for me to go to my closet and be like, okay, I know this black shirt matches with this black pant. So I always wear the same. I try to be monochromatic with like either all black and white, all black or all white. Or I'll like mixture of the two. And then the last other one that I'll share is I was born half deaf in my left ear.
Oh, wow.
And a lot of people don't know that, but I, like when I'm on job sites and stuff, I can usually like read people's lips very well, even if there's like a nail compressor going, because I'm used to it.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
So it's pretty, and I had hearing aids growing up, but like what kid wants to wear hearing aids? It's just not the cool thing to do. And I probably should still wear them, but I just decided that like, you know, if I can't hear something, my husband's like, will you listen to me? I'm like, you know, I'm half deaf. Like, come on. So I kind of use it as a crutch now.
I would have never known in a million years, even on Zoom. Like, I would have never known.
It's
Nice.
not like that. It's not that bad, but
yeah. Yep,
I mean,
cool.
I guess I don't know the difference. So
Yep.
for me, it's just kind of like, it is what it is. But
Gotcha. We have that in common. My closet is all black and white, Amy.
when you shut up and all
Yeah,
black,
no,
you got the
you know,
uniform.
like I'm either gonna have a white shirt or a black shirt, like 99% of the time.
It's
Like
easy.
you, I was like, just get up,
Easy.
go. I know what I'm wearing. One of the two. I've got like probably 5 black shirts, 5 white shirts at any given time.
My
Polos.
husband's like, another black shirt. I'm like,
Right. That's my
yeah.
thing. That's what I do.
yeah. Like, I need a black shirt for yoga pants. This is like my
Right.
shirt for dress pants. Duh.
No, excellent. Love this, Amy. This is awesome. Really appreciate you coming in. The final really comment is, how can people connect with you? Because, I appreciate you coming in here, making the time for this and sharing, your powerful story. How can people connect with you? Who's your ideal client?
Yeah.
Let the folks know.
I'm on like social media, email, Amy Lynn Interiors, Amy at amylyninteriors.com. You can text me. My cell phone number is on my website, and that's amylyninteriors.com. It's a Maine number, so it's 207 still, so don't be thrown off by that. But yeah, I'm very approachable. I love talking business, whether you want to be a client or you want to just talk business. That is like, I will talk for hours on end about business and obviously about design as well. My ideal client is someone who wants something different, someone who wants doesn't want to have white paint on 90% of the house, like interior walls, someone who wants to, if you're buying countertops or you're buying cabinets, you want like a little bit of like excitement on your inside of it. And we have really creative ways of like making things feel unique, where it's like a paper towel pull out, which a lot of people aren't doing, but I'm like, no one likes their damn paper towels on the counter. Like, so we have these cool ways to kind of, make it feel a little bit more thought out. So someone who appreciates that, and we're able to work with any budget. I mean, granted, that's something that I've always been proud of, because I love what I do. And obviously I want to be profitable, but I understand that the people on the other end need to be profitable as well. So I think that's the beauty of loving business and design, that I'm kind of able to appreciate both sides of it.
Awesome, Amy. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you. This is great.
And that's a wrap, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode as much as I enjoyed it. And come back next time. We'll have more great conversations for you.